When that parent changed, got healthier, and became present, the child was impacted without anybody even having to talk about anything. And it's the same thing that happens when you do your own inner work. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 3-part series, Am I Fucking Up My Kids? I wanted to go into this because these are questions that I get a lot, especially with new clients who come in and start working with me and start uncovering the story around their birth, right? We do birth story, which is the circumstances around your birth from conception till 3 months old. We look at everything that was going on with your parents during that time and how it could have impacted the way you're showing up in the world now. We also look at your relationships with your parents. And once people start to go into this stuff and uncover it, they ultimately say, oh no, I think that I'm fucking up my kids, and what do I do to fix it? I have a lot of thoughts around this that I'm going to be going into in the next 3 videos, but this one is titled, When You Change, They Change. And as somebody who worked as a school counselor with traumatized children for over 10 years, there's something I can tell you for sure, which is that when you do the inner work, it will impact your kids. And you don't have to say anything to them, and they won't even know it, but it will fundamentally change not only your relationship with them, but their relationship with themselves and how they feel about themselves and how they show up in the world. So here's what I mean, and I'm going to give you a quick example because I want to put your anxieties to rest, because I know there's so much out there now around, all this pop psychology and, you shouldn't yell at your kids, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. And then when you start to uncover a lot of these family dynamics, you realize that you might have been engaging in the same behavior that your parents engaged in with you, which then led to you having certain wounds or unmet needs or patterns in life that have held you back. Here's why you don't need to say anything to your kids. You don't need to do anything to fix them. All you need to do is work on yourself. So when I was a school counselor, I would see this type of thing over and over again, which was if there was a kid that wasn't behaving well in class, never did their work, was always getting in trouble, usually when I would talk to that child or dig into what was going on, we would find that they had a parent who was absent in some way. Say their parent was on drugs, they weren't in the home, they weren't present in their lives. Then whenever that parent would, say, get off of drugs, get themselves cleaned up, and they came back into the kid's life and they were a present source of support and they were wanting to be a parent and they were present in the kid's life, all of a sudden, without having to say anything to that child or do any sort of behavior charts or reinforcing, that child would fundamentally change. They would start doing their work. They would start behaving. They would be more engaged in class. And the only factor that changed was that their parent was now present for them. And it fundamentally changed the way the child showed up, presented, and behaved on a daily basis in school. So I'm sure you can understand where I'm going with this. When that parent changed, got healthier, and became present, the child was impacted without anybody even having to talk about anything. And it's the same thing that happens when you do your own inner work. Because what happens is when you start to do your own inner work and you show up differently and you shift patterns that have been going on, not only with your parents, but for generations before them, going down the ancestral lines, you fundamentally stop trauma and inherited patterns of dysfunction simply by reconciling and healing within yourself. And then you start to relate to your kids differently, and then they start to relate to you differently, because largely Kids respond to their environment. The energy that you bring, they respond to, and they model it. So whatever way you are interacting with them and however they witness you interacting with yourself and the world, they will model it. And I'm sure if you're a parent, you know that you can say a lot of things to your kids and usually they don't listen, but they do model your behavior. You know, they end up doing what you do, even if you tell them not to. They will. All you have to do is continue to be dedicated to your inner work, and your kids will be positively affected by that. And I can give you a few other examples. So another thing that can happen is once you start to be more present with yourself, right? You use the breath work, you use the tools in the metamorphosis that I've created to do all of the inner work. What happens is you're not on autopilot getting triggered from things from the past that are coming up in the present. So you have a lot more space within yourself to be showing up in present time. And then what happens is when your child does something that normally, you know, would trigger your unmet needs or your underlying anxiety and you would react, what happens is you have more space. And instead of reacting, you can respond and you can be present to say, what is it that you need right now, right? And you can hold space for uncomfortable feelings. You can be present while your child cries or throws a tantrum or complains, because that crying, that complaining, it's no longer triggering your own unmet need of you needing a parent to hold space for you while you were crying, or you needing a parent to provide you context of what you were feeling because you couldn't make sense of it. Because you've already done that for yourself, now you have the space to do that for your child. So what ends up happening is you are able to be present with them, hold space for them, listen, not lash out or get angry or judge or react based on your own unconscious unmet needs and wounding. You're able to show up and hold space, and then they start to feel safer with you. They start to feel like you have something that they need, right? They feel connected to you, and it fundamentally changes your relationship with them. And then what happens is where they might have taken on your trauma of maybe not feeling safe in the world, not feeling validated, unconsciously seeking approval, what happens is you're not passing on those patterns to them. So they start to feel more safe and secure in the world. They expect their relationships to feel supportive and loving, and they trust themselves to feel their feelings and walk through discomfort because you've modeled that to them. And not only have you modeled that to them through holding space for them to feel and supporting them through discomfort, you've also modeled to them that you've done that for yourself. And so they will do it for themselves. So what happens is they will feel more comfortable and confident making decisions. They will not have any patience for dysfunctional relationships or people who treat them badly, because now they have a model of what it is to have a healthy, functional, supportive relationship. So they'll end up having way better relationships in life, and they will have higher requirements for the people that they bring into their lives, and they won't end up getting into dysfunctional or unhealthy relationships. And they'll feel more confident in the world to go out and do what they want to do, because they'll trust themselves and their ability to feel their own feelings, and they'll start to feel that sense of security and stability within themselves because you provided it for them. So that's the first video. No matter what already happened in the past, even if your kids are older, this still applies. No matter what happened in the past, as long as you continue to do the inner work and you are able to be more present with yourself and more present with them, they will fundamentally shift. I've seen it 100% of the time with my own kids, with all of my clients. When you change, they change. So don't worry, you're not fucking up your kids. All you have to do is continue to do the inner work and they will be positively affected. Hopefully this was helpful. I'd love to hear your comments below. If you want to learn more about the core wound and how to apply some of my specific trauma tools, download the Core Wound Solution Private Podcast, which is linked below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I have new videos coming out every Wednesday. And please like this video if it resonated for you and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts.